in parallel to this session, we have the big exhibition on the left of us, where more than 200 companies and startups are presenting what they are doing, and you are invited after the end of this session to go and visit the exhibition. Also, I would like to thank to our many sponsors and supporters without whom we cannot make the conference viable. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I have a special pleasure to invite into the stage one of the world's foremost pioneers of the whole cyber industry. This is an Israeli gentleman which created one of the largest companies in the cyberspace. And about 20 years ago, or even a little bit more, we will ask him, he devised the first firewall. And I asked myself what he was doing when he was a kid that he became aware of the need to protect companies with firewalls. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Gil Shwed, the founder and the CEO of Checkpoint Software Technologies from Israel. Mr. Shwed. Before you start, can I ask you one question?
Sure.
When you were a kid, did you hack the computers that you became aware of the need of firewall? You don't have to, you can plead the fifth, you know?
No, not really. I wasn't a real hacker. I mean, I've tried to get around in places, but I wasn't a computer hacker really from the bedside. Okay, we're ready to start. Okay.
In today's connected world, we have fewer boundaries, so we must understand the 360-degree landscape around us. This brings opportunities and risks. In this world, networks are the new highways, and data is the new currency. Business takes place everywhere, and cybersecurity is the global gatekeeper. Employees, partners, and customers are collaborating and exchanging information, working in conference rooms, clouds, and places in between. But so are the bad guys. Good enough security is not enough. Endpoints need to be protected. Customer data must be secured in real time without delay. Whether you're talking mobile, cloud, Internet of Things, or whatever comes next, we're right there with you, giving you the freedom to act, react, take risks, and move forward without boundaries. With 360-degree protection. Checkpoint. Welcome to the future of cybersecurity.
Okay, now I think we got a little bit more energy. So good morning, everyone, once again. I'm very pleased to be here. I think this is probably, I don't know, my 4th, 5th time in CyberTech, and this is a great opportunity to see people from all over the world. Last year, I talked about our connected world and about my newly born son. I have a 1-year-old. Why is that not working? I have a... Okay. Not working? System preferences. So last year I have a newly born son, and I told the story that I won't tell again about his connected crib, and now a problem with that company prevented my son from sleeping in that connected crib. My son is now a year old. He's much bigger. He's not sleeping in the crib anymore, and we actually fly drones together. And I have a lot of stories about how he's born into a new cyber world and what we do together. We don't have much time to speak about that, but I can just tell you that for example, when he goes in the park, I follow him with the drone. When he sees the drone, he looks up and he screams, "Daddy, daddy." So that's how babies interact today. How is that related to cybersecurity? I'll save that for the end, and I'll tell it in the last part of my presentation. But let's speak a little bit about what's happening in cybersecurity today. And I don't know, we got here the color of the pink, much red, maybe for the right reason, but it should be a little bit milder pink here. It's not that scary. But clearly, when we look at 2017 and what's happened in our world, we had a lot of cyber events, and I think everybody here knows about that. We got huge amount of data leaked, almost all the US information about citizens, information from the German parliament was hacked, the UK parliament was hacked. We had amazing cases of break-ins, and then we got WannaCry that represented a very sophisticated attack that affected businesses in 99 countries, shut down factories of some of the world's biggest countries, and did a lot of damage in a matter of hours. And everybody says in our industry, wow, that's an attack that happens once a decade, once every 10 years. And then 2 months later, we have a similar attack, not Petya, that almost completely shut down the entire country of Ukraine and impacted many more businesses. And when we look into that, we can ask ourselves, was 2017 a wake-up call for all of us in the security industry? And when I saw the last presentation talking about the CEO's concern about cybersecurity, I think it's very justified. And again, mentioned the Davos and the World Economic Forum. This is a report that was published a couple of weeks ago by the World Economic Forum showing the global risk of the world. And you see cyber attacks made it to the top, right behind natural disaster of extreme weather events, and really made it to the top 2 of the top 5 most likely to happen attacks, have now risen from nowhere in 2018 to the most likely things to happen. And definitely we need to ask ourselves, what's going on here and what are we facing? And I believe that we are in an inflection point in the world of cybersecurity, and let me explain a little bit why. If we look here, we are today at what I call the 5th generation of threats, the 5th generation of attacks. And let's a little bit, before I jump and explain that, let's look at these different generations and what do we do about them and how they evolved. So our industry, the IT security industry, started at the late 80s, the beginning of the 90s, with the first real threats that we saw. I don't know how many people here remember, with the computer viruses. They attacked a single computer at a time. They moved around when we moved data with floppy diskettes, with floppy drives. Again, I'm sure that some people here remember that. And in my lifetime and in our lifetime, that looks like forever. That's 30 years. But in the world itself, it's a very short period amount of time. And that started our industry with the first antivirus companies. And one of the first one was invented actually in Jerusalem, in the Hebrew University of Jerusalem, by 2 young guys that are a couple of years older than me, and I know very well. And that was the first generation of cyber threats, or it wasn't cyber, IT security. Then in the mid-90s, the internet started to open up, and suddenly companies became connected. And then hackers found that there is another way to get to our computers, one that works much faster, one that works globally from everywhere, which is getting out to our computers from the network. As a young guy here in Israel, I identified that opportunity, and I'm very proud to be part of that industry, or actually developing the first commercial firewall, and that was when I started Check Point in 1993, 25 years ago. We're celebrating this year 25 years, and kind of fighting the second generation of malware that started coming from the network. Of course, the hackers didn't sit still, and in the early 2000s, we got a new generation that now exploits vulnerability in applications that are allowed access, like our web servers, our mail servers, our database servers, if they are exposed, our browsers that are allowed to access the internet, and finding vulnerabilities in applications that now, that's the new vector how malware is being delivered and the way malware proliferates. And there's been a host of technologies that people use. For example, intrusion prevention is one of them that's being used to spot individual attacks, and hopefully, if it's prevention, it's actually even blocking them. And of course, the hackers, this race has not stopped, and the hackers understood that more and more people can spot their attacks, and they started making more sophisticated attack, what we call polymorphic content. So when we actually open what looks like an innocent Office document, that document can host itself the malware, but this time the malware will change its format or its signature every time, so it will be much, much harder to detect it because we already saw it or because we already know it. And again, this was around the 2010 period of time, and what we've seen is new technologies like anti-bot, sandboxing, technologies that are more behavioral analysis to these threats, and this is the 4th generation of malware. Now, before I jump forward, let's understand how many people are actually using these technologies. So I won't do the full survey because we don't have much time, but if we look at the statistics, Gen 5, Gen 1, antivirus, almost 100% of enterprises use. Also, again, we talk about firewall, protecting our perimeter, protecting our network. Again, if you look at the enterprise world, it's pretty much 100% of businesses. Then we jump to Gen 3, and suddenly we see a big drop. Only about 50% of enterprises actually use modern intrusion prevention on their networks, wherever it needs to be. And that's, again, let's remember, this is 10, 15 years old. This is not new. And then we move to the Gen 4, and then we drop to, I think in an optimistic case, it's about 7% of businesses that actually have technologies to fight with these attacks in a preventative mode, maybe a little bit more, maybe 10, 15% that are using it in detection mode, which doesn't stop the attack. And yet, when we look at where we are, today's attacks are not even Gen 4, they are Gen 5, but let's see where we are. So the world has evolved, the attacks has evolved, our protections are around here, between layer 2 and 3. That's the grade that we get based on customers that we look. So no wonder that we feel vulnerable, and no wonder that we are afraid of cyber attacks, because we're 10, 15 years behind the hackers. And then comes Gen 5, and when we see Gen 5's attacks like WannaCry, data leak attacks that we've seen last year, we're seeing a much more sophisticated attacks. We're seeing attacks that are large scale, going between countries and industries. We're seeing attacks that are multi-vector. It's not just a single attack targeting a single vector of access. We actually have somebody that's stealing your identity from your mobile phone and using that to hack your cloud and using that to infect a payload that actually gets inside the enterprise. And this is not science fiction. This is the attacks that we're seeing every day and that we saw a lot in 2017. So environments like cloud and mobile are clearly challenging. And in many cases, technologies that was originally developed not by amateur hackers, but very sophisticated state-sponsored organization, is leaking to the bad side of the map, and hackers are actually using that technology and not just more amateur technologies. So this is really frightening. And when we look into that, we understand that even Gen 4 technologies are not enough anymore. We need to use technologies that's working 100% of the time in prevention mode. Not just detection, because detecting WannaCry or detecting any attack an hour later may be too late. The attack has already caused the damage. We need real-time action. Whenever we notice something, we don't have a week, we don't have 2 weeks, we don't have a month to stop it. We need to stop it right away. And we need to cover not just the traditional IT infrastructure, the personal computer, the network. We need to cover our weakest points. And when we saw the data leak incidents of last year, almost all of them was weakness in the cloud. Mobile, last year, we had more mobile devices infected than personal computer infected. Yet, how many people here have a security agent on their mobile phone? Nice number here, still in the 1 to 2%. The percentage in the world is less than 1% of enterprises, and that is amazing. And when we saw attacks, for example, last year, like WannaCry, they affected 300,000 computers. Mobile malware that we found last year, we had different families, but one family attacked 10 million computers. Another one, we have an argument how many, but it's around 50 million mobile devices that were affected by a single malware, by a single operator. And that's a big threat to our world. And what that means to us is that we must step forward. We cannot stay and argue if you're level 2 or level 3 or level 3 plus. We must step forward all the way to stopping these mega attacks, the Gen 5 mega attacks. How do we do that, and what ingredients we need? So first, we need real-time prevention technologies all over. We need to cover, as I said, all the bases, the data center, the cloud, the endpoint, the network, the mobile, all the elements in our computing environments. We need to provide the best security technologies everywhere, and we need to manage it in an holistic manner, in a consolidated way. That's what we need to do. How do we do that? How do we move to that Gen 5? And we asked a little bit of our people in the industry, our customers, is it possible to implement these technologies? And here are a few of the answers. First, an answer, it says, it will never happen to me. Not such a great answer. I think it will happen to all of us. Another one, that's really complicated. That's correct. That is complicated, and it's not that simple to put all the technologies and everything we need to do together, and we need to understand that. Another one, it says, no way to stop attack, we're just giving up. Again, I disagree with it. I run a security company. I think we can stop attack, and I think every day we stop the most sophisticated attack. That's what we do in our industry. And last one, which is a little bit more sophisticated, it says, it takes me about 6 months to implement each technology. 20 technologies that I need to implement, I already started with some. I'll be there in 2025. And guess what? The world in 2025 will be far more ahead. So how do we solve it? And when you actually look at that, and I've tried to group here some of the technologies we need in order to do that, we need a small army of technologies. And if you look around the floor here, or if you look at this chart, and you see how many technology families, how many companies in our industry, it is really, really complicated, and there's way too many. There are a lot of great technologies, but there's just too many of us to absorb that and try to build that infrastructure in every enterprise. Does that look impossible? So I'll quote here a French philosopher from the French Revolution. It says, the impossible we do immediately. Miracles takes a little bit longer, and that's, I think, what I'm trying to inspire the people in Checkpoint. What can we do and how can we do it right away? And that's what we tried to do. We took all these elements, we took all these different technologies, and tried to organize them and put it in a way that can be implemented. Put all the different layers, build the infrastructure, put it under one single umbrella, one single consolidated architecture, and have one console that can manage all of it. And this is not science fiction. This is what we can do today. And then we actually get the Gen 5 protection, which I think is very, very doable these days. So I think that's where we are today, and I think that's where people need to step up to. Last year when I presented, I got some feedback that says, okay, great, you're talking about where we are today, what do we need to do now? But we expect you to talk a little bit also about the future. How does the future look like? So I don't have a lot of time, but I'll try to cover the future and also the answer to the question, how is that connected to the drone that my son, my 1-year-old son, likes to play with? So let me talk about that and what should we expect next in the field of cybersecurity. So when we look at this drone in the sky and the controller connected to the iPhone here, we definitely, everybody that's a security conscious says, okay, we have a problem here. We have a device that needs to be secure. We have a communication channel that needs to be secure. Here is another security problem, but that's not the real problem. This is the local problem, because this is a small part of the communication. The real challenge is that this drone is connected to a pretty big system behind. Plenty of cloud services that gives it instruction whether to take off, where it can take off, where it can land, maps, and so on. All the flight data is recorded. It gets instructions from the cloud. Everything I do is stored in the cloud. That cloud system is connected to a data center that connected all of it, and that connected to an enterprise, maybe more than one, that have access to these systems. And any vulnerability in this complex system affects me, affects my drone, and if it's the drone used by the army or by a commercial company to do deliveries, it affects all of us. And one click by somewhere here that was hacked can take down all the drones in the world, or at least all the drones by one vendor. And this is not unique to drones. That's the big challenge. This is actually everywhere. It's true on transportation. All the airplanes that we fly in are like that. soon all the cars are going to be connected like that. It's true for hospitals. Hospital and the medical infrastructure, I think, is the most vulnerable infrastructure that we have today. In every hospital, hundreds and thousands of devices from different vendors running different software, all are vulnerable, all are connected in an environment that's wide open. Anyone can walk in and try to hack the network. So this is really, really scary. That's true to our banking system. That's pretty much true to every industry. Everything is interconnected, or the way many people look at it, or the way I call it, the age of things. Everything is interconnected. The telcos, the smart cities, our smart cars, our energy, all of that is connected in this huge mesh. And it's not just computing devices, it's all the controllers or all the devices that we have in our world. And everything is a target, and everything that's being attacked can affect everyone. So what can we do about that? And how can we secure that? So if we talked so far about Gen 5, this will be Gen 6. And Gen 6, I think we should go much more granular, or the way I call it here, nano security. And what we will do here is start putting these nano agents all around. Everything that's connected can have a tiny agent, not huge software packages, because we can't install them on all these devices. We can't manage them. And we'll have these tiny nano agents that can control its connection to the rest of the world. We will take these nano agents. You see they can be here on a security camera. Again, last year there were networks of millions of security cameras that are ready to attack the world. This will be small software, open source, that can be on an operating system, on an IoT device, on a microservice on the web. For example, on the cloud, we have services that are computerless, that we're just launching a service and stopping a service. So a nano agent can be on that kind of service. It can be the same a nano agent that connects our existing network and protects the perimeter, like the gateway that we have today. All these nano agents will be connected together into a central intelligence and control system that can help prevent attack, predict attack, and we use a lot of predictive security guidance based on shared artificial intelligence system. And I believe that this is how the future will look like. So if I put it all together, it will be a little bit more complicated. We'll have all of that nano agents connecting to an adaptive system with AI controls that will provide more security to our world, both on a local basis and on a global basis. And this is some of the things we're working on right now in Check Point to put more security into the next 5 and 10 years, and not just what we need now. So to summarize what I think we've talked about, today we're definitely at an inflection point. Our protection is at level 2 to 3. The world is at Gen 5. We need Gen 5 security. We need to make the jump. We can't just implement one technology and another. We can't just be busy finding the best and most interesting technologies, because we will always be behind. We need to make a generational leap all the way to Gen 5 security, and we need to make that investment, and mainly we need to make that decision in our mind, because that's the most important one. And when we do that, we need to remember, we need to do it with the best security, with real-time prevention, and I believe it's a doable thing, and I believe if every one of you takes that message to your own organization, to your own country, I think we can make a big leap forward in 2018. So thank you very much for the time, and enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.
Everybody's going to the party, have a real good time.
Gil, how many people are now in Check Point?
Check Point today, 4,600 roughly.
4,600. How many you will have in 5 years?
I wish I knew.
Give a guess. Nobody can check it anyhow.
Guess double than that.
Double than that. And can I ask what are the revenues of the company?
This year it's about $1.8 billion. We're announcing results tomorrow, so I won't give you all the numbers.
Okay.
But this year it's about $1.8 billion.
And when the company was founded?
1993, so we are celebrating 2018 is our 25th anniversary.
And how old you were when you created the company?
I started Check Point when I was 24, like a little bit less than 25.
Okay, but you are still 24, so how you were able to keep the same...
Thank you. You're not changing. I'm getting older, I must tell you, Yossi.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very much.
Wonderful story
Thank you.
and very inspiring story. And the story is really inspiring the whole Israeli cyber and tech